I played like Game of Thrones, the card game. I played the collectible card game when I was in middle school, and then the first edition living card game later on, like after college. And then when the second edition came out, I got like really deep into the competitive scene and made a bunch of friends that way. And we were like one of the like only like media coverage of the scene for a long time, and it was fun, but like man did I devote a lot of time to that for like no reason.
You are preaching to the choir right now.
Yeah. I was looking at your board game reviews on your site, and I don't know if I have ever played any of your top 10.
It's a wide hobby world now, and I mean the space is growing tremendously, but at the same time it's like now becoming so saturated too, I mean there's a billion YouTube channels now, so many podcast websites and everything. And so there really is something for everybody. I think anybody who tries to be like authoritative on the subject is a little weird, but at the same time, I'm kind of like glued to, finding out what's coming next and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So, the one thing the space lacks is like real criticism, like any kind of like larger like academic pursuit or theoretical interest that's like beyond super arcane,
Oh.
I could see that, where like you have game reviewers who would just say, "This one's crap." Well,
Yeah.
why? Explain to me. Like, how would you improve it? What would be your model for actually making a decent game out of it, or is it just beyond saving?
And developing critical theories beyond just game mechanics would be, fascinating.
Well, I think it's like one of these things, right? Because it's hard to distinguish whether these things should be taken seriously as cultural artifacts, or if like they are merely commodities, or if they ride some rail between, or and I think that's interesting. I think it's worth looking into. There's some people who are pushing the envelope for sure, like in terms of design, in terms of experience, that are sort of like putting these really like thorny questions of colonialism and what does it look like to insert somebody into the role of really awful people doing awful things, and having to play out those dynamics, and really taking the time to be historically accurate, to because like one of the preeminent guys doing this right now, his name's Cole Wortley. He's actually a former history professor, and he put out a game called John Company, and you are all various like components of the East India Trading Company.
Oh my god!
And you have to like navigate these squabbles between you over the just vast looting and pillaging of this entire people. And then at the end of it, you have to kind of like, well, and the rule book's very clear. You have to like come to an agreement before you even start the game. Like, this is what we're doing. We have to understand the historical weight of this. There's a bunch of documents and further reading provided and things like that. But then you also have to contend with the idea of like, well, it is still just like a mechanical sandbox, and ultimately it is being sold as a game. So is it worth reducing the generational pain of this to a tabletop gaming experience? And I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it does. I love that, because like I really enjoy linguistics and all of these things. And one of my like big interests recently again has been the Royal Game of which is like one of the earliest games we have from text written in Ugaritic. And there's now research being done by people at the British Museum talking about how even the names for the characters, you have the good guys, which is the Ugars, and you have the bad guys, which are the barbarians, and the barbarians don't get as many turns, and they don't start with as many pieces. And it's like, well, like you are telling your story. You are telling your innate racism within a game that was meant for children, but it was teaching those kids how to be racist. So it's fascinating to see just what those games tell us about culture, because there's deeper meaning behind everything in this.
Yeah, I mean, even and we've even seen some of that revisionism, and we can move beyond games here at some point, but it's like a big part of my life. But
Sure.
but like you see this even, playing out in revisionist conversations that are looking to interrogate, the late 90s into the mid 2000s, which was considered by many kind of the golden era of like European board game design, because that was the beginning of which was Settlers of Catan hitting the United States. And you notice that now it is no longer called Settlers of Catan, it is simply called Catan, right? And so like we're examining as a wider board gaming culture, why are we so fascinated by mythologizing and gamifying in not only a cultural sense but a ludological sense, right? I mean, like just the actual play of reenacting colonialism and capitalist exploitation and wanton misogyny, racism, ableism, all of it. Why are we so interested in this when there are perfectly good other mechanical alternatives that do the same things in terms of exercising your brain, but you can like put birds in pretty habitats, for instance, say Wingspan, right?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things, and even that game, got a little bit of a Gamergate type pushback because
Really?
everybody was like, this is ridiculous, it's way overhyped. There was a sizable portion of the community that says the only reason that this is getting any attention is because it's pretty and it's a female game designer. And I was like, this is weird. Like,
yeah,
women have been part of gaming forever. Like, there's no reason for us to like be sexist about it, and then to further like complicate the gender discussion, we finally have more non-binary and trans folks in the coverage space, and bringing their lenses into how we look at old classics and new hits is really interesting.
Yeah,
because traditionally, right, when you have a game, you just get like all your character cards with your depiction of your avatar, right? I mean, they just look like us.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're finally starting to see art that more accurately, I think, reflects the wider like sort of global appeal of playing games with your friends. So
yeah,
that's so cool.
Well, so I think we have a new podcast. We'll just scrap this. I was going to say, I think we found a nerd who's as geeky as we are.
Hey, I'm all about it. That sounds great. I don't have to talk about my bad poetry then.